Good morning. This is Kim Blaylock with SDG Bible Study. That's the SOLI DEO GLORIA Bible Study coming to you on this Tuesday morning, April the 8th, 2025. I hope everyone is doing well as we're getting into a new day and a new day of reading from the Everyday Gospel by Paul David Tripp, a daily devotional with reading from the biblical text and then a short devotional reading. This morning we're going to be in 2 Samuel. We're going to be in chapters 12, 13, 14, and 15 this morning. So, four chapters to read this morning. So, let's dive into it. Join me as we read God's Word together. 2 Samuel chapter 12. Then Yahweh sent Nathan to David, and he came to him and said, There were two men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a great many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb, which he bought and nourished, and it grew up together with him and his children. It would eat his morsel of bread and drink of his cup and lie in his bosom, and was like a daughter to him. Now a visitor came to the rich man, and he was unwilling to take from his own flock or his own herd to prepare for the traveler who had come to him. Rather, he took the poor man's ewe lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. Then David's anger burned greatly against the man, and he said to Nathan, As Yahweh lives, surely the man who has done this deserves to die, and he must make restitution for the lamb fourfold because he did this thing and had no compassion. Then Nathan said to David, You are the man. Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, It is I who anointed you king over Israel, and it is I who delivered you from the hand of Saul. I also gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your care, and I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if that had been too little, I would have added to you many more things like these. Why have you despised the word of Yahweh by doing evil in his sight? You have struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword, have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the sons of Ammon. So now the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says Yahweh, Behold, I will raise up evil against you from your own household. I will even take your wives from before your sight and give them to your companion, and he will lie with your wives in the sight of this son. Indeed, you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against Yahweh. And Nathan said to David, Yahweh has also taken away your sin. You shall not die. However, because by this deed you have given occasion to the enemies of Yahweh to blaspheme, the son also that is born to you shall surely die. And Nathan went to his house. Then Yahweh smote the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, so that he was very sick. David therefore sought God about the boy, and David fasted and went and spent the night lying on the ground. And the elders of his household stood beside him in order to raise him up from the ground, but he was unwilling and would not eat food with them. Then it happened on the seventh day that the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, Behold, while the child was still alive, we spoke to him, and he did not listen to our voice. How then can we tell him that the child has died? He might do himself harm. And David saw that his servants were whispering together. So David discerned that the child had died. So David said to his servants, Has the child died? And they said, He has died. So David arose from the ground, washed, anointed himself, and changed his clothes. And he came into the house of Yahweh and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and he asked. And they set food before him, and he ate. Then his servant said to him, What is this thing that you have done? When the child was alive, you fasted and wept. But when the child died, you arose and ate food. Then he said, While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, Who knows? Yahweh may be gracious to me that the child may live. But now he has died. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me." Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba and went into her and lay with her. And she gave birth to a son, and he named him Solomon. Now Yahweh loved him and sent word by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he named him Jedediah for the sake of Yahweh. Then Joab fought against Rabbah of the sons of Ammon and captured the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David and said, "I have fought against Rabbah. I have even captured the city of waters. So now gather the rest of the people together and camp against the city and capture it, lest I capture the city myself and it be named after me." So David gathered all the people and went to Rabbah, fought against it, and captured it. Then he took the crown of their king from his head, and its weight was a talent of gold, and in it was a precious stone, and it was placed on David's head. And he brought out the spoil of the city in a very great amount. He also brought out the people who were in it and set them up with saws, sharp iron instruments, and iron axes, and made them pass through the brick kiln. And thus he used to do to all the cities of the sons of Ammon. Then David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. Now to chapter 13. Now it happened afterwards that Absalom, the son of David, had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar. And Ammon, the son of David, loved her. And Ammon was so distressed because of his sister Tamar that he made himself ill, for she was a virgin. So it was hard in Ammon's sight to do anything to her. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, and Jonadab was a very shrewd man. And he said to him, "O son of the king, why are you so depressed morning after morning? Will you not tell me?" Then Amnon said to him, "I am in love with Tamar, the sister of my brother Absalom." Jonadab then said to him, "Lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill, and your father will come to see you, and you will say to him, 'Please let my sister Tamar come and give me some food to eat, and let her prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat from her hand.'" So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill, and the king came to see him. And Amnon said to the king, "Please let my sister Tamar come and make me a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat from her hand." Then David sent to the house for Tamar, saying, "Go now to your brother Amnon's house, prepare food for him." So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down, and she took dough, kneaded it, made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. And she took the pan and dished them out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, Have everyone go out from me." So everyone went out from him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food into the bedroom, that I may eat it from your hand." So Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them into the bedroom to her brother Amnon. Then she brought them near to him to eat. But he took hold of her and said to her, "Come lie with me, my sister." But she said to him, "No, my brother, do not violate me, for such a thing is not done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing. As for me, where could I get rid of my reproach? And as for you, you'll be like one of the wicked fools in Israel. So now please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you." But he was not willing to listen to her voice. Now he was stronger than she, so he violated her and lay with her. Then Amnon hated her with a very great hatred, for the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, "Get up, go away." But she said to him, "No, because this wrong in sending me away is greater than the other that you have done to me." But he was not willing to listen to her. Then he called his young man who attended him and said, "Now cast this woman out of my presence and lock the door behind her." Now she had on a long sleeved garment, for in this manner the virgin daughters of the king dressed themselves in robes. Then his attendant took her out and locked the door behind her. Then Tamar put ashes on her head and tore her long sleeved garment which was on her, and she put her hand on her head and went away crying aloud as she went. So Absalom, her brother, said to her, Has Amnon your brother been with you? But now keep silent, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this matter to heart. So Tamar remained and was desolate in her brother Absalom's house. Now when King David heard of all these matters, he was very angry. But Absalom did not speak to Amnon, either good or bad, for Absalom hated Amnon because he had violated his sister Tamar. Now it happened after 2 full years that Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hazor, which is near Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the king's sons. And Absalom came to the king and said, Behold, now your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the king and his servants go with your servant. But the king said to Absalom, No, my son, we should not all go, for we will be burdensome to you. Although he urged him, he was not willing to go, but blessed him. Then Absalom said, If not, please let my brother Amnon go with us. And the king said to him, Why should he go with you? But Absalom urged him, so he sent Amnon and all the king's sons with him. Then Absalom commanded his young man, saying, See now, when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, Strike Amnon, then put him to death. Do not fear. Have not I myself commanded you? Be strong and be valiant. Thus the young men of Absalom did to Amnon just as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and each mounted his mule and fled. Now it was while they were on their way that the report came to David, saying, Absalom has struck down all the king's sons, and not one of them is left. Then the king arose, tore his clothes, and lay on the ground, and all his servants were standing by with clothes torn. But Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, answered and said, Do not let my lord suppose they have put to death all the young men, the king's sons, for Amnon alone has died because by the intent of Absalom this has been set since the day that he violated his sister Tamar. So now, do not let my lord the king take the report to heart, saying, All the king's sons have died, for only Amnon has died. Then Absalom fled, and the young man who was the watchman raised his eyes and looked, and behold, many people were coming from the road behind him by the side of the mountain. And Jonadab said to the king, Behold, the king's sons have come, according to your servant's words. So it happened. And soon as he had finished speaking, behold, the king's sons came and lifted their voices and wept. And also the king and all his servants wept very bitterly. Now Absalom had fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihu, the king of Geshur. And David mourned for his son every day. So Absalom had fled and gone to Geshur, and was there 3 years. And the heart of King David was consumed with going out to Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon, since he had died. Now to chapter 14. Now Joab the son of Zeruiah knew that the king's heart was inclined toward Absalom. So Joab sent to Tekoa and brought a wise woman from there, and said to her, Please pretend to be a mourner, and put on mourning garments now, and do not anoint yourself with oil, but be like the woman who has been mourning for the dead many days. Then you shall go to the king and speak to him in this manner. So Joab put the words in her mouth. So the woman of Tekoa spoke to the king, and she fell on her face to the ground and prostrated herself and said, Save, O king. And the king said to her, What is your trouble? And she answered, Truly, I am a widow. My husband has died. And your servant woman had 2 sons, but the 2 of them struggled together in the field, and there was no one to deliver between them. So one struck the other and put him to death. And behold, the whole family has risen against your servant woman, and they say, Hand over the one who has struck his brother, that we may put him to death for the life of his brother whom he killed, and destroy the heir also. Thus they will extinguish my coal which remains, so as to leave my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth. Then the king said to the woman, Go to your house, and I will give a command concerning you. And the woman of Tekoa said to the king, O Lord my king, the iniquity is on me and my father's house, but the king and his throne are guiltless. So the king said, "Whoever speaks to you, bring him to me, and he will not touch you anymore." Then she said, "Please let the king remember Yahweh your God, so that the avenger of blood will not continue to bring about ruin, so that they would not destroy my son." And he said, as Yahweh lives, not one hair of your son shall fall to the ground." Then the woman said, "Please let your servant woman speak a word to my lord the king." And he said, "Speak." Then the woman said, "Why then have you thought up such a thing against the people of God? For in speaking this word, the king is as one who is guilty, in that the king does not bring back his banished one. For we will surely die, and are like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Yet God does not take away life, but thinks up thinks up thinks up ways so that the banished one will not be cast out from him. So now, the reason I have come to speak this word to my lord the king is that the people have made me afraid. So your servant woman said, "Let me now speak to the king. Perhaps the king will perform the word of his maidservant." For the king will listen and deliver his maidservant from the hand of the man who would destroy both me and my son from the inheritance of God. Then your servant woman said, "Please let the word of my lord the king be a resting place. For as the angel of God, so is my lord the king to listen with discernment through the good and evil, and may Yahweh your God be with you." Then the king answered and said to the woman, "Please do not hide anything from me that I am about to ask you." And the woman said, "Let my lord the king please speak." So the king said, "Is the hand of Joab with you in all this?" And the woman answered and said, "As your soul lives, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right or to the left from anything that my lord the king has spoken. Indeed, it was your servant Joab who commanded me, and it was he who put all these words in the mouth of your servant woman. In order to change the appearance of things, your servant Joab has done this thing. But my Lord is wise, like the wisdom of the angel of God, to know all that is in the earth." Then the king said to Joab, "Behold, now I have done this thing. Go therefore, bring back the young man Absalom." And Joab fell on his face to the ground, prostrated himself, and blessed the king. Then Joab said, "Today your servant knows that I have found favor in your sight, O my lord the king, and that the king has performed the word of his servant." So Joab arose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. However, the king said, "Let him turn to his own house, and let him not see my face." So Absalom turned to his own house and did not see the king's face. Now in all Israel, was no one as handsome as Absalom, so highly praised. From the sole of his foot to the top of his head, there was no defect in him. When he shaved the hair of his head, and it was at the end of every year that he shaved it, for it was heavy on him, so he shaved it, he weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels by the king's weight. And to Absalom there were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of beautiful appearance. Now Absalom lived 2 full years in Jerusalem and did not see the king's face. Then Absalom sent to Joab to send him to the king, but he was not willing to come to him. So he sent again a second time, but he was not willing to come. Therefore he said to his servants, "See, Joab's portion of land is next to mine, and he has barley there. Go and set it on fire." So Absalom's servants set the portion of land on fire. Then Joab arose, came to Absalom at his house, and said to him, "Why have your servants set my portion of land on fire?" And Absalom answered Joab, "Behold, I sent for you, saying, Come here, that I may send you to the king, to say, Why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me still to be there. So now let me see the king's face. And if there is iniquity in me, let him put me to death." So Joab came to the king and told him, and he called for Absalom. Thus he came to the king and prostrated himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom. Now to chapter 15. Now it happened afterwards that Absalom prepared for himself a chariot and horses and 50 men as runners before him. And Absalom used to rise early and stand beside the way to the gate And when any man had a case to come to the king for judgment, Absalom would call to him and say, "From what city are you?" And he would say, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "See, your words are good and right, but no man listens to you on part of the king." Then Absalom would say, Oh, that one would appoint me judge in the land, that every man who has any case or judgment could come to me, and I would justify him." And when a man came near to prostrate himself before him, he would send forth his hand and take hold of him and kiss him. In this manner Absalom dealt with all Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole away the hearts of the men of Israel. Now it happened at the end of 40 years that Absalom said to the king, "Please let me go and pay my vow which I vowed to Yahweh in Hebron. For your servant vowed a vow while I was living at Geshur in Aram, saying, If Yahweh still indeed bring me back to Jerusalem, then I will serve Yahweh." And the king said to him, "Go in peace." So he arose and went to Hebron. Then Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, "As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you shall say, Absalom is king in Hebron." Now 200 men went with Absalom from Jerusalem, who were invited and went innocently, and they did not know anything. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gileonite, David's counselor, from his city Gilo, while he was offering the sacrifices. And the conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. Then an informant came to David, saying, "The hearts of the men of Israel have followed Absalom." So David said to all his servants who were with him at Jerusalem, "Arise and let us flee, for otherwise there will be no escape for us from Absalom. Go in haste, lest he overtake us hastily and drive calamity on us and strike the city with the edge of the sword." Then the king's servants said to the king, "Behold, your servants are ready to do whatever my lord the king chooses." So the king went out, and all his household with him, but the king left 10 concubines to keep the house. And the king went out, and all the people with him, and they stopped at the last house. Now all his servants passed on beside him, all the Kerethites, all the Pelethites, and all the Gittites. 600 men who had come with him from Gath passed on before the king. Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, Why will you also go with us? Return and remain with the king. For you are a foreigner and also an exile. Return to your own place. You came only yesterday, and shall I today make you wander with us, going about while I go where I go? Return and cause your brothers to return. Loving kindness and truth be with you. But Ittai answered the king and said, As Yahweh lives, and as my lord the king lives, surely wherever my lord the king may be, whether for death or for life, there also your servant will be. So David said to Ittai, Go and pass over. So Ittai the Gittite passed over with all his men and all the little ones who were with him. While all the country was weeping with a loud voice, all the people passed over. The king also passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over toward the way of the wilderness. Now behold, Zadok also came, and all the Levites with him, carrying the ark of the covenant of God. And they set down the ark of God, and Abiathar came up until all the people had finished passing from the city. Then the king said to Zadok, Return the ark of God to the city. If I find favor in the sight of Yahweh, then he will cause me to return and show me both it and his habitation. But if he should say thus, I have no delight in you, behold, here I am, let him do to me as seems good in his sight. The king said also to Zadok the priest, Are you not a seer? Return to the city in peace, and your 2 sons with you, your son Ahimaaz and Jonathan, the son of Abiathar. See, I'm going to wait at the fords of the wilderness until word comes from you to inform me. So Zadok and Abiathar returned the ark of God to Jerusalem and remained there. But David went up the ascent of the Mount of Olives and wept as he went, and his head was covered, and he was walking barefoot. And all the people who were with him each covered his head and went up weeping as they went. Now David informed them, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Yahweh, I pray, make the counsel of Ahithophel foolishness. Then it happened that as David was coming to the summit where he used to worship God, that behold, Hushai the Archite met him with his coat torn and dust on his head. And he said to him, If you pass over with me, then you will be a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, O king, as I have been your father's servants in time past, so I will now be your servant, then you can thwart the counsel of Ahithophel for me. Are not Zadok and Abiathar the priests with you there? So it shall be that whatever you hear from the king's house, you shall inform Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Behold, their 2 sons are with them there, Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son. And by their hand you shall send me everything that you hear. So Hushai, David's friend, came into the city, and Absalom came into Jerusalem. That's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text. And now, the devotional reading. God's gift of forgiveness is not a guarantee of the removal of sin's consequences. The Bible is full of reminders that the one who sits on the throne of the universe is a God of glorious grace. It shows us God's grace in story form, in poetic utterances, and in doctrinal explanations. Grace is a central theme in every part of the biblical revelation. But the Bible never presents God's grace in a way that would cause us to be less than serious about sin. You can't read your Bible and walk away saying, because God is a God of grace, it doesn't make any difference how I live, because no matter what I do, I will be forgiven. The Bible never presents God's grace in a way that would make you feel free to go out and do what is wrong in God's eyes. Grace is not God's being permissive. God's grace always takes sin seriously. If sin were okay, there would be no need for grace. The cross of Jesus Christ stands as a monument to the fact that sin has penalties because God takes sin seriously. One of the ways that the Bible protects us from misunderstanding the grace of God is by reminding us of the consequences of sin. Because God loves us, because he is jealous for our love, and because he is always seeking to draw us near, he has ordained many biblical stories that portray the consequences of sin. But Scripture does even more. It makes it clear that the grace of God's forgiveness doesn't always mean the removal of the consequences of sin. God is ready, willing, and able to forgive us, but often for our spiritual good and his glory, the consequences remain. In this way, God welcomes us to run to him for the forgiveness that he is ready to offer, while also cautioning us to be serious about the destructive nature of sin. Grace and consequences do not work in opposition, but are meant together to draw us into a life of deeper gratitude and greater surrender to God. We see the operation of grace and the consequences of sin in the life of David after he commits adultery and murder. The prophet Nathan confronts David after his sin, and David repents. Note how forgiveness and consequences come together in Nathan's final words to David. The Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die. Nevertheless, because by this deed you have utterly scorned the Lord, the child who was born to you shall die. Then Nathan went to his house. 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 13 through 15. Forgiveness and consequences in the same statement. God's message is obvious. Grace is glorious. Sin is serious. And we need to hear both notes loudly and clearly. May we never celebrate grace while our actions scorn the Lord. And may our celebration of grace be even more exuberant because we grasp with seriousness the utter destructiveness of sin. That's going to conclude our reading this morning. I hope you have enjoyed it as I have. What tragic turn of events. in the life of King David in these chapters. Saw a lot of sin and its consequences. Of course, the loss of the child, the life of the child because of the sin of David. And then we see the terrible consequences of rape and an enraged brother, Absalom, killing Amnon. Then we see the rebelliousness of Absalom as he steals away the heart of the people. And all of this is consequences of sin. We must understand that God is gracious, but that does not mean that at times the consequences of sin can be great. That's why we must be faithful and trust God. Hope you've enjoyed the reading this morning, and I hope you have a blessed day today. Soli Deo Gloria.